Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are listening in from all over the world. We've got a global community who have been reaching out and saying that they've really been enjoying this last 5 days, 4 days. This is the 5th session as part of the Money, Marketing and Mindset Boost Masterclass. So for those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Anne-Marie Cross. I work with experts already in their field, yet they feel like the world's best kept secret, and I help them go from invisible to influential and profitable with a podcast. And I've been running this series as a way to, introduce myself, but also to a number of conversations that I've had over the last little while with aspiring thought leaders, so service-based businesses who want to package up their services in programs and packages, but also really take their message to the next level, to a global scale through a podcast. They weren't quite yet ready, because they needed to have these things in place. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time to create this content so that, number one, I can send people back to this to go and watch, so that if they are considering a podcast, that they make sure that they have this in place, or if not, we can certainly work together. However, it's going to take a little bit of strategizing to get them to a stage where they can create a thought leader podcast and start to nurture listeners into leads and ultimately paying customers. So in session 1, so today we're going to be putting it all together. There's some last minute things that I want to share with you that you need to have in place and be aware of, actually, as part of business growth and marketing, so that you can build a sustainable and scalable and profitable business. So this is session 5. In the last number of sessions, and before I just talk about the sessions, let me just pop this up on the screen, because alongside the content, I also have created a work guide so that you can take down notes, especially if you want to go back and listen to the other sessions. And so go to annemariecross.com/5-day masterclass. And if you're not yet already part of our awesome tribe of aspiring thought leaders and change makers, go ahead and do that, bit.ly/pod tribe. But in session 1, we talked about some of the common money, marketing and mindset mistakes. We covered a couple that were in the money mistakes, a couple of the marketing mistakes, and then a couple of mindset mistakes, and common areas that would be blocks, barriers from people taking their business to the next level. And, they should be far more ahead of what they were. And so we talked about things such as, charging by the hour, not being able to showcase value and expertise, and obviously outcomes that you would support your clients with if you're just charging by the hour. And then you're often seen as this commodity and not this authority, and really that you should be attracting higher paid customers. And then in the second session, we talked about a money boost, where we identified some of the systems and the model that you want to have in place so that you can go from an underpaid commodity to a highly paid authority. We covered that in session 2. Go back and watch that. In session 3, we had a marketing boost. And the marketing boost was some strategies that would help you to stand out, be heard, and be seen as that thought leader. Really important. We talked more about niching, what that looked like, the various ways that you can niche. Often we talk about niching to a specific demographic or psychographic in the marketplace, but there were some other aspects. And I gave you some examples on that. So watch session 3, go back and watch the replay. Session 4, which was yesterday's, we talked about a mindset boost, particularly 3 common mindsets that will keep you stuck. And I know many people can relate to that. So go back and have a listen, so that if you see that as you're growing your business, and let's face it, the things that will keep us stuck and that we work through, and mindset is one of those things that often we don't talk about or we don't spend a lot of time on, yet I think it's so very important. As I mentioned in session 4, we can have the best systems in place. We can have the best business model. We can have a service offering that is so unique that no one else is really being able to offer that in a way in which we would and can do that for our ideal clients. Yet if we've got limiting self-beliefs, if we've got limiting mindset that keeps us stuck, then we'll only be able to grow our business to the level of what our mindset will depict. And so I really want you to go back and listen to that, and even re-listen and re-watch if you haven't already, because that can make such a significant difference in how you're growing your business. Now, I'm leaving these recordings up on the web. So wherever you're watching this, we're streaming this live across a number of different platforms. I'm going to leave this up because I know that sometimes when you rewatch things over and over, similarly, you know, if I'm listening to podcast episodes of some of my favorite podcast hosts, I'll go back and I'll listen to something 2 or 3 times, and every single time I pick up something different. Or what I'll do is I'll hear it with different ears, if that makes sense. Because I think every time you do listen to something, you grow a little bit, and then you can take on board and you see things and you hear things that you might not have picked up. So I'm leaving this. I'm not leaving these resources. I'm not taking them down. But I am one to encourage you, get into action, because knowledge is fantastic. But if you're not applying that knowledge, if you're not challenging yourself with new knowledge or new understanding, then you can't grow. And you know, in business, there's no such things as stagnant in business or playing safe, especially if you want to take your business to the next level. So please go ahead and implement, take action. Write comments, leave questions, message me if you want to have a private chat. My door is always open, and I'm always available. And by the way, if you have not yet subscribed to my podcast, I've got a couple, but my favorite one, and where I'm really spending a lot of time focusing on moving forward, is industrythoughtleaderpodcast.com. So let's hang out together there. And of course, in the community, pod tribe, bit.ly/pod tribe with a capital P, capital T. Let's dive into session 5. So again, session 5, we're talking about putting it all together for sustainable, scalable, and of course, profitable business growth. I mean, you can be generating an incredible income. I've got a lot of clients, or not clients, but some clients and a lot of colleagues who are in the industry of finance and business growth from a financial point of view. And so building a profitable business is a whole other topic, and one that we're not going to dive into today, but you need to be very aware of, you know, your income versus expenditure to see that what net profit you're generating is profitable. And so we're not going to talk about that today, but what we are going to talk about is really from a big picture scale, when you look at all of the content that is being shared online, and we're thinking about consumer behavior, and we're thinking about you building engagement with your ideal client and then nurturing them through that buyer's journey. And one of the things that I have been speaking about for a little while now with a lot of my clients and of course my community is to have this understanding of the buyer's journey. So the customer journey, buyer's journey, whatever you want to call it. And I know that there's a number of different stages and you can break it down even further, but I like to keep things simple so that simple things, we are able to then take action. If we make things too overwhelming, we can get stuck in that overwhelm. But basically, there are 3 stages. So if you're following along in the work guide, page 12, write down these different things, these 3 key things in the stages. The first stage of the buyer's journey is awareness. The second stage is consideration. The third stage is decision. So what does this mean for you? Well, you need to be aware of these 3 stages. You need to be aware that your ideal client, when they're looking for a solution of your services, they may not yet know you. They may be aware that they have an issue. They may be aware that they have a problem or a challenge, and they're now looking. They're now looking for a solution. And this is where you want to have content out there for them to discover. So that not only are they aware that they've got a problem, but they're also become aware of you. So that leaves me to ask you the question, what content are you putting out there? Especially when you think of thought leadership, you being this aspiring thought leader. Are you sharing valuable content? And if you think back to some of the sessions that I've had previously, is that content that you're continually putting out some of the core thought leadership content, some of the core pillars, I like to call that with some of my clients? you've got a number of different themes, a number of different subtopics, but there is this invisible thread that ties them all together, that you're speaking into that particular area. You're sharing your voice, your expertise, your knowledge. And if you're inviting other people, such as guests, onto your podcast, or if you're doing lives like this and you're interviewing someone, the information that you're sharing is still relevant and valuable for the community that's you're starting to build around you. So awareness, what content are you creating? You know, I talk also about your brand communications wheel, and there's a number of different spokes in that wheel. There could be podcasting, there could be speaking, there could be lives, there's quotes, graphics, so many incredible ways to share our content. How are you sharing content to build awareness of you, your expertise, so that when someone, your ideal client, is searching, they find you and then they're compelled to take that next step. So stage 2, consideration. Consideration is really around that stage where someone knows about you and now they're diving a little bit deeper into the content that you're sharing. They're taking that step closer to you in your community. So, you know, what have you created that enables people to take that next step? And I'm sure you've heard of the term, and, you know, we term lots of, you know, your free opt-in, free content, something that people will find extremely valuable. It's focused on delivering them a mini outcome, but a valuable mini outcome, so that through your support and through consuming that content, they've been able to have a win. And if you allow them to have that win through you sharing your expertise and guiding them through that, you're going to build that know, like, and trust as being someone who is able to give valuable content, but content that helps them to transform, helps them to get closer to whatever outcome that they are looking to achieve. So in this consideration stage, what have you got? You know, sometimes what have you got in terms of content that people can consume and take that next step? You know, sometimes if I do a bit of an audit, and before I'm working with a client, we look at all of these different stages, particularly with the podcast. You know, what have you got that can nurture people, as I say, nurture listeners into leads and ultimately paying customers? And sometimes what happens is, when I'm working with someone or potentially going to work with someone, we have a look at what's that next step. But there's a disconnect, because the content that you're sharing online versus that free opt-in or that guide or maybe a podcast series, that's something that's working extremely well too. The content and the way you're bringing that forward, there's a disconnect. So people think, you know, this isn't relevant. I remember years ago, I was working with a colleague who was a mortgage broker, but she was so passionate about helping people pay off their mortgage far quicker that they would have financial freedom to finally have the income and, you know, the money to do what they love with their family. But one of the free opt-ins that she was giving away with people on her website was the ebook that her banking institution had given, or one of them had given her. And I said, yeah, but that's got nothing to do with your expertise. So why not create a checklist of 5 ways that you can start saving money right now? And those 5 ways could be very simple things that people could change their mindset around how they're dealing with money and look at different things. I think one of them was, if I recall, this was quite some time ago, paying off your mortgage. And I don't know if this is relevant, and go and seek financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, just need to give that. But one of the things that she was saying is, rather than paying off monthly, do that every second week. So pay towards your mortgage quicker, and that would impact, you know, the interest rate. That was just one of the things that I recall. So imagine creating that checklist. And now, of course, we've got podcasts. Imagine if you funnel people through and you actually speak them through that, through a podcast series alongside some checklists. Those kind of things would work incredibly well. And it's valuable because it's aligned to the content that you would be working with them through if they decide that they want to hire you. You have to have it relevant. If there's any slight disconnect, people are going to be put off and think, well, that's not relevant to me. Because there's so much noise and content out there, you don't want them to find another resource when you know that you could do incredible work with them. So that's the stage 2. Stage 3 is decision. And we know that we do not want to be salesy, we do not want to be pushy or anything of that kind online. We want to be valuable, but sometimes we go to the opposite extreme and we don't invite people to take that next step, whatever that next step is. So that next step may be, let's have a phone call. Let's have a chat. DM me. I know a lot of my mentors and people who are on Instagram. The DMing is an incredible way to engage in that relationship. And so, I observe and read some comments on Facebook recently where someone says, don't DM, that's so rude. But I said to them, look, it really depends on your market. Are people DMing and using that? Some people might not want to immediately book into your program or purchase because they may have some questions, even though you may have answered them already. Sometimes there are some people, if you look at consumer behavior, customer behavior, some people do like to be able to ask questions even if you've answered them already, so don't disregard offering a number of different ways that people can connect, because remember, as human beings, we are incredibly interesting, shall I say, some of the behavior of people. So you need to tap into and be able to offer ways that people can connect with you. So what decision are you encouraging people to make? Purchase a course, have a telephone call with you. You might be one of those people, if you're a thought leader or aspiring thought leader, that there is a certain criteria that you need your ideal clients to fulfill first, that that if they do fulfill that, they're your ideal client and you'll take them on board. I know one particular colleague who had some core values as part of her business, and she actually turned down a number of business owners. She said, I can't work with you, can't support you. I wish you all the best. Here's some great recommendations that I can go and recommend you go and see that, as a potential solution for you, but we can't support you because it's actually against our values. So again, you might have an intake session before you work with people, but whatever decision it is, make it intentional, so that people are not left thinking, well, what next? What next? You need to be determining what that is. You need to get clear on that, and then you need to clearly communicate that on a consistent basis. All right. So those are the 3 stages: awareness, consideration, decision. And one of the things that I talk about with my clients, if we're talking about podcasting, your podcast pipeline needs to incorporate these 3 stages, needs to incorporate content that nurtures people from the podcast, then into the next step, and then nurtures people again to that next step. That's the pipeline. And once you've got that set up in a very strategic, robust way, guess what? It's going to continue to work for you over and over, 24/7, 365 days a year. And those people who are ready will step forward. So it's something that works for you in the background over and over and over. But here's something that I want to share before we finish off today's topic. And this is on page 12, the second session. There are only a small number of people who are buying. And this is what validates why it's so important to have that pipeline, to have that to have that relationship building structure in place. We might call it a funnel. I know that there are some people that kind of have negative connotations to that word funnel, but really it is relationship building throughout all of the content and the nurturing sequence that you have in place. So here are some things that I want you to be aware of. And this has been quite insightful for people once they recognize that. 55% of people are unaware. They're unaware that they've got an issue. They're unaware that they are stuck. And guess what? That's okay for them. That's fantastic. And so you probably don't want to have a lot of your attention, focus, and energy focusing on those people who are not aware. If you've got to try and convince people that they've got an issue and that they should be working with you, you're going to get very, very exhausted. 25% of people, they are aware. 25% of people, they are aware. And 17% of people, they are in the decision-making mode. So what you want to try and do is have content out there, consistent, great content that people will find when they're searching. So in terms of, your podcast episode title, are you incorporating keywords and phrases that your ideal client would be searching for? And as we know now, Google actually will show episodes of podcasts. So that's fantastic. So make sure that you incorporate, the language that they're using in your podcast titles and your articles. All of this. SEO, very, very important. 17% of people are in decision-making mode. So what do you have in place when we're thinking about the consideration stage? What do you have in place that will invite people to take that next step, to make that decision that, hey, this is interesting. I listened to a podcast episode, or I watched a video, watched a live, and I want to take that next step because I want to explore a little bit deeper what this person has said and shared, and if it's valuable. So that 17% of people are then going to opt in, for your free offer, whatever that might be. However, this is a number that I want you to be mindful of, that only 3% of people are buying. And then 3% of those people are going to be or less than 3% of those people are going to be less than your ideal client. So hang on, let me just say that again, because I think I confused myself. 3% of people are buying, but only a small percentage of those 3% are your ideal client. That's what I wanted to say. So often we get frustrated. People will say to me, yeah, but Emery, I'm putting out all this great content and no one's buying. And I would say to them, well, how many people put up their hand? 3. Well, that's fantastic. But if you think that out of that 3, only a small percentage of people, and I think sometimes it's as small as 1 to 2 or maybe even 3% of people will say yes. So you see then why it's so important to have content that's out there, that you continue to really build that know, like, and trust with that large audience, because only a small percentage of those are going to say yes. And even a smaller percentage of those are going to take that next step to buy with you, or to buy from you and invest in you with your products or services. So it's not that your product or service is not valuable or no good or not useful, but rather than you just need to increase your numbers of people who are, engaging with you and consuming your content. So don't let the fact that some people may not be purchasing now put you off. It just means that you need to be a bit more strategic in getting that message out there, because as you continue to grow your audience and build momentum, that means the larger audience are going to give you more down the track of people who are ready to buy. They're going to be your ideal clients and stepping forward. So I hope that makes sense. So don't be afraid to continue sharing your message. I know we talked about that mindset around, failure. You're not failing. You just need to bring in more people to be aware of your products and services, and just keep launching and relaunching. And as you build that momentum, you'll continue to find that people will put up their hand. So that's it for the 5-part, we'll call it a series, a masterclass. Again, if this is something that you think is valuable, you want to know a bit more information, please go ahead and join our pod tribe, bit.ly/pod tribe. Love to hear your thoughts on that. And again, reach out. Feel free to subscribe to my podcast, industrythoughtleaderpodcast.com. And then you'll know, I only run my intensive and immersive podcasting with purpose for thought leaders, my 90-day idea to launch. We only launch that twice a year, and currently we're going through that. There's a number of awesome thought leaders who are going to be launching their podcasts in February 2020. And the next time we're launching that, if that's of interest to you, will be March of next year, for launching, so March, April, May, June. So if the Thought Leader podcast is something that's been on your to-do list, reach out, join that pod tribe, because I'll be going live there throughout the 5 days before we launch, so that you can get a little bit more understanding about kind of the work that I do as well. So, but other than that, that's it for this particular masterclass. What I am thinking of doing is popping in every Wednesday for some Wednesday wisdom. So it might be myself, may even look at opening it up to some of my, colleagues who I admire and who bring some real value to the conversation too. But who knows? I'm keeping that open. We'll see what my team and I decide to lock into place. But again, look forward to reading comments. Please share this with someone if you know that they've been struggling, or if you see in them what they may not yet see in themselves, that they've got a message, they've got expertise that you know can impact so many people, yet you also know what they're doing is not getting them out there in front of the number of people that you know they can impact, then share this particular masterclass series with them and introduce us. I would really appreciate that. And if we've not yet introduced each other, please message me. I'd love to know a little bit more about your business and how you're impacting the world. All right, that's bye for me, and look forward to connecting again on the next live. Bye for now.